Governor Newsom vetoed bills about kindergarten classes due to the concerns of lower than expected revenues. That comes as he still has hundreds of bills to sign or veto before the month's end.
Governor Gavin Newsom has over 500 bills to either veto or sign by the stroke of midnight on this coming Friday. That would mean making decisions on about 100 bills per day. On Sunday, he decided to veto Assembly Bill 1973 and Senate Bill 70, with concerns that the state's revenues will be, quote, lower than expected. Newsom has consistently used this phrase while vetoing not just this bill, but numerous other bills. In the veto message, he wrote, "With our state facing lower than expected revenues over the first few months of this fiscal year, it is important to remain disciplined when it comes to spending, particularly spending that is ongoing." AB 1973 would have required elementary schools to offer at least one full-day kindergarten class starting in the 2030-31 school year, with a phased implementation beginning in 2027. SB 70 would have made kindergarten mandatory for students to attend first grade, starting in the 2024-25 school year. The Department of Finance released a July report showing California's tax revenues fell short of expectations in June. The author of AB 1973, Assemblyman Kevin McCarthy, told the Center Square that he was, quote, disappointed by the governor's veto.
Gas is going up again. After nearly 100 days of prices slowly dropping, the trend is to pay more once again. Here's who is paying the most, the least, and why it may be happening.
Gas prices are on the rise again after 98 days of declines, with California leading the nation. According to AAA, the national average price for a gallon of regular gas was $3.68 on Wednesday. That's up nearly 1 cent from Tuesday, still lower than a week ago or a month ago. But compared to a year ago, a gallon of gas is up almost half a dollar on average. California saw regular gas at an average of $5.49 per gallon on Wednesday, the highest in the country. That's $2.40 higher than the national low in Mississippi. Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, told USA Today that gas prices could go even higher this year. A range of factors come into play, including the looming threat of a recession, the hurricane season hitting its peak, and global oil demand. According to DeHaan, the 14-week gas price decline was the longest streak since 2015. Despite the decline, Americans are still paying record-high prices at the gas pump while dealing with record-high food inflation.
The Bay Area man who went out on a solo kayaking journey from the Pacific has finished his trek. It took him nearly 3 months to kayak from California to Hawaii. NTD's David Lamb talked to the adventurer before his departure and heard from him again after his arrival.
Cyril Derimo completed his first solo kayak crossing from Monterey, California to Hilo Bay in Hawaii after 91 days and 9 hours.
It is paradise because after 90 days of eating only freeze-run dry meal, having fresh fruits, good pineapples and fresh fish, poke, and anything fresh is good. And then, it's Hawaii, so it's the best destination for me.
The trip was all human-powered. That makes him the second person to do so. He says he was happy in his boat out in the Pacific and connected to nature.
I had created a little world of myself with my boat, my routine. Every day I had the waves, the connection with the ocean. I had the birds. I even had fish I was talking to, the mahi-mahi. And then, the dolphin, the turtles, and even the clouds. They had a little dance that I knew I could recognize. After 90 days, I was in symbiosis with this whole environment.
The French-born adventurist faced setbacks. He paddled through strong currents, dominating winds, a boat leak, battery issues, broken filtration, and even a close encounter with a tropical storm. Despite this, he found solutions and continued on the ocean.
Like a sunrise was so peaceful and it was soft. Like swell that was calming. And it was overwhelming. And then a bird came to see me in the middle of nowhere. That was like the universe speaking. Seriously, it was it's so simple, it's so beautiful.
He blogged about his journey and said people followed and connected to his attitude of living life to its fullest.
I started to have a very spiritual journey. You know, when you're disconnected from everything, no social media, no internet, no phone, no email, no friends, you have space, you're decluttered your whole mind. And then I started to think about like ideas about life, about what does it mean to love, what does it mean to consider other people like brothers and sisters, and I wrote all this on my blog.
Now that the journey is over, Deremo and his boat are headed back to California separately.
I'm gonna come back to California and connect with all my friends, have nice dinners and explain like stories and adventures and what happened. You know, they want to know, and I'm happy to share with them how this whole adventure of 3 months at sea changed my life.
He plans to recover his weight and flexibility to get back to full strength. He doesn't plan to sell his boat anytime soon, if ever. David Lau, NTD News, California.
A team of dedicated search and rescue volunteers are celebrating their 75th anniversary. NTD's Jackie Rios went to speak to several of the team members and hear why they get the call when the first responders need help.
The Montrose Search and Rescue is celebrating their 75th anniversary at the Crescento Valley Park. The team is made of dedicated volunteers from all walks of life. Cynthia Moyner England, one of the team members, shared how being rescued changed her. It made her want to volunteer and become involved in search and rescue efforts.
My story is a little unusual in the fact that I was lost in the mountains for nearly 48 hours, and search and rescue teams came and rescued me. And because of that event, I decided this is a great thing these people do, and I'd like to become a part of them.
Community members from law enforcement, first responders, and leaders came together to celebrate the milestone and recognize the team. Started in 1947, they are one of 8 volunteer rescue teams affiliated with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That makes Montrose Search and Rescue the longest-serving team in Los Angeles County. They're responsible for the largest area wilderness. They're always on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, ready to rescue anyone in need.
It's very gratifying when we're able to rescue people, whether they're hanging off a cliff over the side of the highway or if they're missing in a snowstorm in the middle of the night. So it's very rewarding. On the flip side, there are some sad stories also to be had, because not everybody survives.
Mike Liam said that team members are also known as mountaineers. They are trained in a wide range of search and tracking, as well as rescue methods. Some of those include snow and ice conditions, avalanches, cliffs, swift water, and assisting with evacuations of fire and floods.
So what I have on display here is some of the tools we use for ice rescues in snow and ice, because here in LA County, we cover everything from the beach to 10,000 feet in Mount Baldy.
One such rescue situation is when a car goes over the side of a mountain road. Jason Johnson demonstrated the rescue equipment for that emergency.
This is one of our trucks called Robert 3. It's one of our main over-the-side vehicle we use for rescues when a vehicle goes over the side. It has 1,000 feet of cable and rope.
The team is not limited to only LA County, but they also assist other search and rescue teams that are in need of assistance, including out of the state. The Montrose unit has an underground specialty unit that is able to assist anywhere in the United States if there is a need for underground rescue, such as in a mine. The Montrose Search and Rescue Team is made up of men and women who are trained professionals who will respond and do all they can to locate and rescue someone in need. Jackie Rios, NTD News, California.
All aboard the Skunk train. Don't let the name fool you, as the world-famous ride takes visitors back in time through the Redwoods of Northern California. In this special in-depth report, NTD's Eileen Ang went for a ride and to see how the train keeps history alive.
Along Northern California's Pacific coast is another day for the world-famous historic Skunk train, attracting visitors to Fort Bragg from near and far. This is Stothy Pappas, the general manager of the Skunk train, and this is his locomotive, the Santa Cruz Portland Cement No. 2. He brought it out for the Days of Steam event. It was built in 1909.
Having my locomotive here is sort of primed the pump to say, yes, people love the steam locomotive, they love the history that it embodies, and so it's time to rebuild our own.
Steam locomotives have fascinated Pappas since he was a boy. When he was studying to become an industrial archaeologist, he was struck with the idea to buy one.
So back in 2006, I walked into the restaurant where this locomotive had been a billboard painted up like a circus train for many years. It was Pollardville's Chicken Kitchen. And I asked to speak to the owner, who happened to be Neil Pollard. And I asked, well, are you guys interested in selling this locomotive? And the answer was, yeah, at a price that was a little more than I was going to be able to pay as a starving academic.
But it didn't take long for him to get his prize. 4 months later, the locomotive was his, with a rubber chicken tied at the front to commemorate its origins. He operates it with his fireman, John Graddon.
This entire box from the back to the front of the cab is all firebox up to about here. So you have a great big oil fire in here that's boiling all the water in the entire boiler, keeping up that pressure so we can keep her moving.
The boiler runs at about 360 degrees.
The more pressure you have on the vessel, the more heat it takes to boil the water. The pressure brings the boiling point of the water up. The pressure is not what makes the locomotive run. It's the expansion of letting the water vapor out of the boiler that actually moves the engine.
It runs on recycled fuel oil and has since 1909. Graddon explains how he and Pappas work together to get the train going.
And then on this side of the engine, when he's running over here, he's got the bar for direction, the throttle, and the brakes for the train and the engine that he's controlling. So it's a marriage between both sides. He has to have me to do his job. If he's not doing his job, there's no reason for me to do mine. So we work together to make everything happen, all in a balance.
The skunk train's peculiar name came from how bad its exhaust smelled.
When the California Western Railroad bought its rail buses that were gasoline powered, everybody sort of derisively in the local communities called it the skunks. You know, oh, those skunk cars that they use to haul people now. But the management at the time actually embraced that. I mean, hey, you know, it's a good nickname, right? Okay, so you call it a skunk. Well, let's make a logo of a skunk. So Mr. Skunk, the mascot was created, and it became the root of the skunk, or later on the skunk train.
Pappas explained the train started in 1885 as a lumber hauling railroad. It served as part of the Union Lumber Company. Over the years, the tracks stretched further east until it connected to the city of Willits.
This railroad was in many ways the lifeblood of the community here in Fort Bragg for so many decades. It hauled all the goods and services in from the outside world and hauled the timber out. That made most of the money until the lumber mill shut down in about 2002.
It still carries freight, but its economy has changed to focus on passengers. People discovered the beauty of the Redwoods during the second half of the 20th century. Passengers started to ride the train for the scenery. From the Fort Bragg station, visitors can go on an hour-long round trip through the redwood forest. The train moves at 15 miles per hour, so people can enjoy the scenery both inside and out. And the cars date back to as early as the 1900s.
So these are all very historic. The interiors, they have the original walkover seats in them, you know, so the Hale and Kilbourne walkover seats. It's an authentic experience of being on an old-time train.
The train stops at Glen Blair Junction for about 20 minutes. There, people can wander through the forest and enjoy the quiet surroundings. Rail bikes are an alternative option to see the redwood forest. They share the rails with the trains.
On the driver's side, I don't know if you can quite see, but there's a little black box up there that is a little motor. So whenever a driver is pedaling, it will basically give them an electronic assist as they pedal. Because the bikes do weigh in at about 250 to 350 pounds, so they're pretty heavy. So that little electric motor does help you on out whenever the driver is pedaling. There's also a throttle if we have people who don't feel like pedaling or they can't pedal for some reason. They can also just use a throttle.
According to Price, anyone 3 and older can ride it, even 90-year-olds. But after the quick stop, the train sets off into the woods once more.
If you talk to anybody sort of in this part of the world and you say, I work for the Skunk train, everybody says, I remember riding that with my parents or my grandparents, or I took my kids there. And so there's such a legacy here of people, cross-generation coming to ride this train, to see the scenery, to enjoy a nice cool day in Fort Bragg, California on the coast and look at the ocean, have some seafood for dinner at the end of the day. It's a magical institution. It's one of the flagship institutions in the entire Heritage Railroad industry, and it feels great to get to be a part of it.
The Skunk train also departs from Willits on a longer 2-hour round-trip journey into the Redwoods. There are 5 historic trains, with special event trains running throughout the year. Eileen Ang, NTD News, Fort Bragg, California.